Hey, this is Todd living in Daytona Beach. Today I'm sitting right at the Ponce Preserve. It's located in Ponce Inlet, Florida, right here, just to the south of Daytona Beach. Now this is a small little sliver of a suburb to the south of Daytona, as I said. It's only 4 miles long, it's 2 miles wide at the widest point. But what's really cool about this particular area is that, for one, it's almost completely separated from the rest of the surrounding area. There's only one road in, one road out. That's Atlantic Avenue. And so when you get down into Ponce Inlet, it's quieter for the most part. What's really nice about this area as well is that you have the Halifax River to the west, and you also have the Atlantic Ocean. And the largest or the widest part of Ponce Inlet is only about 2 miles. No, excuse me, the widest part from the Halifax to the Atlantic Ocean is only about a half a mile, so it's real easy access. We're going to look at today the pros and cons of Ponce Inlet. We're going to do a little bit of on-site live footage of Ponce Inlet and also step inside the office as well. As always, if this is the first time to the channel, go ahead, hit subscribe and the bell so you never miss a thing about living in Daytona Beach or living in any suburb near Daytona. Plus, if you're moving in 9 days to 9 months or 3 days to 3 months, if you're moving to Florida, moving to Daytona Beach, please give us a call, text, email, or set up a Zoom video call, because we will make your move memorable. So today, Ponce Inlet, pros and cons. We're going to try to cover things such as traffic, schools, real estate, green spaces such as parks and recreation, fun things to do. So stick around, that all happens right now. So this is Todd living in Daytona Beach. I'm not sure how the audio is going to turn out because we have a pretty good tropical storm kicking in. I'm not going to tell you what month it is, but it does start with a J and it comes right after May. So anyway, I'm down here in Ponce Inlet, which Ponce Inlet is just a sliver of a suburb to the south of Daytona Beach. It's only about 4 miles long, about 2 miles wide, and the 2 miles wide includes areas that aren't even inhabitable. They're kind of like little island areas. But we're going to see, today we're going to look at a lot of different things, pros and cons of Ponce Inlet. Let's talk about one of the cons of the area right now is A1A. This road you see behind me and this other direction right here, this is the only way in and out of Ponce Inlet. It's completely locked on either side. You've got the Halifax River to the west, you've got the Atlantic Ocean to the east. And so it's a little bit landlocked. What's nice about this is you don't get the heavy traffic that Daytona gets, but when you have people visiting, you do have this area. A1A gets completely packed, and it's like I say, only one way in, one way out. The other thing to be mentioning as a con is that you see behind me condos and houses along the beach line here really constrain how much access you have to the beach. We're going to look at some beach access today. We're going to look at the ocean, see what it looks like. It's going to be pretty wild. We do have a tropical storm warning, so that's another one of the things right here. If you live in Ponce Inlet, when there's a tropical storm and there's any chance of flooding, they are going to probably ask you to leave and get out of the area. So let's go take a look at what the beach looks like right now. If I was doing a surfing report today, I'd say the surf is coming in. Those waves are a little bit too close together for a surfer, but you do bodyboard, it would be perfect right now. The wind is still coming in pretty strong. It's still in the 80s right now. We still got sunbathers out here. Not much sun out, but there are some sunbathers. People enjoying their area right down here on the beach. Again, Ponce Inlet, a little bit quieter than Daytona Beach. You're going to find yourself with a lot more open space, not as many crowds, and not as many people on the beach. Ponce Inlet is a fantastic place, and don't get me wrong, But if you were to really think about, well, if you're living down here, it doesn't really affect you very much, other than if you live off the beach, you have to either drive your car, your golf cart down here. There's a few off-beach it's off-beach parking, but it's few and far between. We already mentioned earlier about there's a lot of condos and houses that kind of close off the beach access area. The one thing about Ponce Inlet is it's a little bit difficult to find a spot to park. But you got a little spot like this down here in Ponce Inlet. I'm about 1 mile away, a little less, from the actual Lighthouse in Ponce Inlet, which we'll look at in a little bit. We have like some small places to eat at across here. You've got Jerry's Italian Restaurant, you got Cafe Oi, you got a surf shop down here. Turn around here, you can kind of see the ocean from where I'm at. But see, there's not a lot of parking. You probably have maybe 12 spots total down here. So in the busy months, we're talking summertime, you want to get down here early if you have to drive down here to Ponce Inlet. Hold on. Well, today we're talking about Ponce Inlet, and we're going to talk about real estate there. Some houses you can find there. Now, the whole area of Ponce Inlet is only 8 square miles, and that includes areas that aren't even inhabitable. Little areas, little inlet islands and whatnot. Beautiful area, of course, Ponce Inlet. What's the real estate like? Well, for one, if you want to, you can get yourself a $14 million, I call it a mini mansion. What's that going to get you? Well, that's going to get you a 6-bedroom, 8.5 bath, 12,000 square foot plus home that overlooks the water. Well, you can actually overlook the water from your own private pool. So how good is that? Well, let's say you don't want to shell out $14 million just to live in Ponce Inlet, although it would be great. Let's say you want to go maybe the condo lifestyle. There's some trade-offs. You're going to pay some HOA condo fees. Ponce Inlet, what can you get condo-wise? You can get a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo for about $364,000. Not a bad price tag for what you get with Ponce Inlet. But let's say you don't want the condo life and you don't want to spend $14 million, so what exactly are you going to spend living at Ponce Inlet? Even if you don't have water view, you're going to find prices somewhere between $550,000 all the way up to $750,000. But on average, in Ponce Inlet, you're going to find things that are 1.5 all the way to 3.5. Now that's going to give you a beautiful home, probably a home that's either 4 or 5 bedrooms, 4 or 5 bathrooms, well over 3,000 square feet. Of course, going to be in Ponce Inlet, which is a prime spot for real estate. Remember, you're completely locked out. I don't want to say locked out. You're completely separate from any other areas of Daytona Beach. You've got one road that goes in, one road out, which is great for a lot of people. Quiet, nice and reserved neighborhoods. A lot of it is non-HOA. You're only going to usually have an HOA right there at the condos. So there you go. You save some money that way. little bit about traffic. Now, Atlantic Avenue is the only road you have that goes in and out of Ponce Inlet. The only way to get to the mainland, as they call it, which is fine. There's no big issue with that. I will tell you, in the summer months, because Ponce Inlet is a little quieter, people do make their way down there to kind of get away from the Daytona hubbub, if you will. Very few drive beaches down. There's one drive beach down there, one area you can drive on the beach in Ponce Inlet. The rest of the beach area is quiet, reserved, and you're going to find yourself plenty of space to hang out in the sun, be in the surf, and be away from the majority of the people. Now, the one thing about Ponce Inlet is there's not a lot of areas to access the beach because there's a lot of condos and there's a lot of houses along the beach line right there. So you're going to find very few access points. Some noteworthy beach access points in Ponce Inlet, one of which is going to be Winter Haven Park, Inlet Harbor Road Beach Parking Area, Beach Street Access Point, Ponce Inlet Beach, and my personal favorite, the Ponce Inlet Dog Beach, which is located right there at Lighthouse Point Park, which is right next to the Ponce Inlet Lighthouse. Plenty of parking down there, plenty of parking inside the park and outside the park. That's why it's one of my personal favorites, because I get to take my dog Chaco down there. That's one thing to be aware of also, is that in Ponce Inlet, you cannot have any dogs on the beach, but the beach access park actually has an area right there, sandy beach area, big area right there for you to enjoy the water with your dog, be in the bay area of the Halifax River, and enjoy as people go by on boats, jet skis, and every type of water sport you can think of right there in Ponce Inlet. So one of the many bonuses of Ponce Inlet is not only is it gorgeous down here, but also there's great access to the Halifax River right where I am standing on the Halifax River at Ponce Inlet, right next to the lighthouse here. It's just a little over a half mile to the beach. So wherever you are, you're close to water. This is really nice right here. Places such as this, right here at the lighthouse area, you're gonna have a free boat launch. You've got the disappearing island behind me. You see people that are actually out there on the boat. It's not very deep. You can almost walk across this area right here. The deepest part is probably 8 feet. But you got hidden treasure behind it, great spot to eat down here at Ponce Inlet. And of course, launch your boat, park your boat, have a bite to eat. Right here, it's not even more than half a mile. Also, my boat right to the mouth of the Halifax River takes you right out into the ocean. Another perk, another pro to being down here at Ponce Inlet. One of my personal favorite parks that's more inland, well, I call it inland, but it's on the Halifax River side. Actually, it's Ponce Preserve. It's a great spot where you can find turtles for one thing. There's tons of turtles in the area, but also there's some walking trails, places to picnic, There are plenty of play areas for the kids, small workout areas on the trail for the adults. Across from Ponce Preserve actually is a dock that walks out onto the Halifax River. Great place to get some sunshine, also do some fishing. There's a kayak launch right there as well. Kayaking in the Halifax River is great. It's fantastic. I will tell you this, be aware of the tide charts, because it's always easier to paddle south when the tide is going out, paddle back into the north when the tide is coming back in. There's nothing worse than having to battle the tide. It can really slow you down and make your trip miserable. So just be aware of it. Just half a mile away from the actual Atlantic Ocean, right next to the Halifax River. This is Peninsula Drive, so it's a little bit quieter than A1A, which is also Atlantic Avenue. But this is a nice area over here, and it's only half mile away from any place on the beach. So you could easily walk to this location, bike to this location. So it's a great path actually all the way down through Ponce Inlet. On both sides of Ponce Inlet, on the river side and Atlantic side, this is a little bit quieter. You can have a little bit more, I call it nature, but you're right next to the Halifax River, a little more green space. There's no houses between you and the river. So it's a little bit quieter over here and just beautiful, gorgeous green space. But this pathway goes for miles. I told you before earlier in the video that Ponce Inlet is 4 miles long and about 2 miles wide. So this goes all the way down the Lighthouse, and this pathway goes all the way to Daytona if you want to. But it stretches the whole length of Ponce Inlet. Let's talk a little bit about schools, because if you're moving to Ponce Inlet, you want to know where the schools are. Well, guess what? There are no schools in Ponce Inlet, but before you get freaked out, just know that you're gonna have to travel to the mainland, that is, make your way back north out of Ponce Inlet to get to some of the closest schools. The closest elementary school is Port Orange Elementary, right across the Dunlawton Bridge. The closest middle school is Silver Sands Middle School, and the closest high school will either be Atlantic High School or Spruce Creek High School. As jobs go in Ponce Inlet, well, they're few and far between. But I say that because there's no major industry in Ponce Inlet. There are areas such as restaurants. You might work hospitality at some of the condos. There are a few marinas, boat marinas in the area, as well as working for the city and the county, working at one of the parks, being a lifeguard, all these different things. There's no major industry right there in Ponce Inlet. So something to be aware of. What's good about Ponce Inlet? Well, there's only about 3,200 people that live there. You wouldn't know that because the city kind of spills into another town, Wilbur by the Sea, which is directly connected to it to the north. According to Area Vibes, Ponce Inlet ranks 72nd in livability score. It ranks 357th out of Florida for cities to live in, and it ranks 5,580th out of all the cities ranked in the US. So it's not too bad. It's got a pretty good score for that size of town. Now, we live in Florida, so we might as well talk about the weather. So we do get weather. In fact, at the time of me filming this, we were in the middle of having a tropical storm warning, which is no big deal. I mean, for the most part, you would just get a lot of rain, some wind. Majority of the time, houses in Florida are built rock solid because we have to be prepared for high winds and, of course, rain. But it's one thing to be aware of. If we have a hurricane that comes through and we get a hurricane warning, there's only one way out of Ponce Inlet. It's always advisable when you get a warning to leave because of a tropical storm, serious tropical storm or hurricane, do so, because you do not want to get stuck on the Ponce Inlet side when a hurricane or storm, serious storms comes through, because it can be very miserable, can take up to days and days, many days, before anybody can actually get back over. Power can be cut off, shut off, and you can lose water, all those different things. So it's one thing to be aware of.